So let's get into chapter 8. Okay, there's another vision that Daniel has in the third year. So the chapter 7 was in the first year of Belshazzar, but in the third year of reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. So after the first vision, referring to the chapter 7, there's another one that appeared to him, he's saying. And it says, and I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river Ulai. And I highlighted Shushan here because Shushan is a city, it's like a capital of Babylon at that time, which later it occupies the current day Iran or Persia. And I find it interesting that this end time vision is from there, because that's what's going to happen in the end times. The war, the coming war is going to break out in the Middle East, and this is where it all begins. And Shushan, the original word, it means lily or a trumpet. Lily is in the form, in the shape of a trumpet, right? So I find it interesting that this was snuck in there to represent the trumpet sound that's going to happen when the tribulation occurs and when the war occurs, the final, the triggering war for the tribulation. And in verse 3, it says, then I lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram. So now we're talking about another animal, ram, which had 2 horns. Now this ram, in chapter 7, the lion represented the, the bear represented Medo-Persia. But in this vision, the ram represents Medo-Persia. Because God says it in the later verses here. I'm not coming up with this. The scripture tells us this, which had 2 horns, because Medo-Persia is like two countries in one. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other. In fact, Persia dominated Media. So this fits exactly what happened to Medo-Persia, and higher came up last. And I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward. This is exactly what happened with the Medo-Persia. They conquered the nations west, north, and south of them, and so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. So they pretty much dominated the world at that time. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat represented, which represents Greece or Alexander the Great, came from the west. It would have been from the west, from Medo-Persia, on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. I find that very interesting, that word, touched not the ground. He didn't even have to go there to conquer these nations. And also, I believe it kind of references to maybe perhaps symbolism for Satan, because he is the prince of the air, right? He doesn't touch the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes, notable horn. So there's a little notable horn, like a little antichrist here, okay? And he came to the ram. So the goat went to the ram that had the 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. So Alexander the Great destroyed Medo-Persian Empire. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, or anger against him, and smote the ram and brake his 2 horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him. So it was destroyed. He took over. But he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. So I find it interesting that, you know, God is showing Daniel what is about to happen in their immediate future. It wasn't like immediate, actually. It was a little bit distant future for them, but still, young in our human history. But looking back, hindsight for us, why is this so important to figure this out? It happened. What happened is happened. Why is this important? Well, it's very important because it validates God's prophecies and who God is, because God is the only one that can tell the future, right? So he he told the future with so much precision. I mean, he symbolized it with these animals and beasts, but he said it with so much precision. He knew exactly what was going to happen, so he kind of he describes it so much in detail. When you really break this down and understand what happened in human history, it fits perfectly. Okay, so the vision is continued here. Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great. So this he-goat is not just Alexander the Great, but it also represents the revived Roman Empire later on. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and it had a goat, I mean, it had a horn that was broken, for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. So I told you, right? There were four chiefs that came up after Alexander the Great died. So there it is, okay? And out of one of them came forth a little horn. There's another little horn reference, the Antichrist, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. I think the pleasant land is referring to the Holy Land, the Jewish nation, or Israel. So out of this, you know, the European Union or the end time one world government is is uh, is going towards southeast and toward Jerusalem, or Israel. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven, host meaning armies of heaven, or the God's people. And it cast down some of the host, God's people, and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. So this Antichrist is gonna insult God and persecute Christians. And yea, he magnified himself. Uh, that's what the Antichrist is supposed to do, right? He's very prideful, and he's gonna think he's greater than anybody, even to the prince of the host, meaning Jesus Christ. And by him, the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast out. So this is very important. I will share more with you on this in the next one too. But so he takes away the daily sacrifice that the Jewish, the Israel nation is supposed to do at the end times. Now, some people think the daily sacrifice has already began and it already stopped. You might say, well, how is that? Because we don't have a temple. Well, you could have a daily sacrifice without the temple. They actually made the altar of burnt sacrifice, and they did this a few years ago. Actually, I actually have a picture of this a little later, and so they've been doing the daily sacrifice sporadically, not every day, but here and there on special occasions. But then you can say, well, it's not daily then. Well, the daily sacrifice is not necessarily describing everyday sacrifice, but the description of daily sacrifice has the elements of the flour, the oil, the wine, the animal together. That's the daily sacrifice, a description of it. Now, whether they did it every day or not doesn't negate the fact that that is the requirement of the daily sacrifice. Okay, so they have stopped the daily sacrifice, especially when the pandemic began. No one is supposed to do the daily sacrifice. So it is kind of eerie that we might be in the middle of a tribulation if you think about this. And the place of his sanctuary was cast down, and so it was defiled. The temple was defiled, and an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. So the Antichrist is wreaking havoc on God's temple, the daily sacrifice. It's like taking over and persecuting Christians and the believers. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, how long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, which in other places of the Bible, in Book of Revelation, elsewhere, calls it the abomination of desolation of the Antichrist when it enters into the holy place, and to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. So in this vision, there's one saint saying to another saint, asking the question, how long is this going to happen? How long is this going to happen? What is the timeline? There, and then God reveals it to Daniel. It says, he said unto me, unto 2,300 days. 2,300 days. Remember those numbers, because I'm going to bring that together in the next teaching. I'm going to put all of these timelines together for you, exactly what is supposed to occur at the end times, and 2,300 days. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's really 4 questions here. How long is it going to be when the daily sacrifice ceases and the abomination of desolation occurs? And then the sanctuary, the temple is going to get defiled, and then the host, is going to be trodden underfoot, meaning blasphemy and the Christians being persecuted and all that. So how long? So there are 4 questions here, 4 questions, and God gives us only one answer: 2,300 days. So I'm going to break that down on the next one. Okay, sorry for the suspense here, but so God then gives us the interpretation of this. Okay, so let's quickly go over this. And it came to pass when I, Daniel, had seen the vision, sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I believe this man is Jesus. And I'll tell you why in the next verse. It says, and I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So this, whoever this man is commanding Gabriel, one of the archangels, to tell Daniel the vision. He's commanding the Gabriel. Who can do that? Only God can do that. Only God can command him to do so. And so I know that this is Jesus. So he came near where I stood. And when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. So he's even saying, this is about the end times. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. So you might say, okay, he's asleep. How is he supposed to understand all this when he's asleep? It's not talking about that. It's talking about some sort of some sort of not in a typical conscious mind, like in a trance of some kind, So, and he said, behold, I will make thee know that what shall be in the last end of the indignation. Again, it's talking about the end times, the tribulation, the indignation, or at the time appointed, there it is, Moedim, the end shall be. The ram, which thou sawest, having 2 horns, Medo-Persian Empire, are the kings of Media and Persia. There it is. God tells us even like directly what they represent, okay? And the rough goat, I thought that was really funny. It was funny on God's part there. He's got a little humor here and there when you read the scriptures. The rough goat, he calls it the rough goat. Just not a regular goat, it's a rough goat, is the king of Grecia. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king, Alexander the Great. See, if there's a first king, there's a second king, right? So it's referring to, okay, there's going to be Alexander the Great, but there'll be the later one that's at the end times, the Antichrist and whoever comes up. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms, which did happen after Alexander the Great, shall stand up out of the nation, but not in its power, not by their own power. See, the power is given to them. either by God or by Satan, but it's not on their own. And in the latter time, again, it's talking about the end time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. This is the Antichrist. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. So the Antichrist doesn't do this on his own. Satan gives him the power. And he shall destroy wonderfully and shall prosper and practice and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. So he persecutes the church or the believers, tribulation saints. And through his policy, so you know this guy has some political power. Also, he shall cause craft or deceit to prosper in his land. So whatever the policy from the government that he coming from, these policies are very deceitful. It is not what it says it is. We have this going on right now, right? To prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. Isn't that ironic? You destroy people in the name of peace. This is what's happening. He shall also stand up against the Prince of Princes, which is Jesus Christ, but he shall be broken without hand. So he shall be broken without hand, meaning not by man's intervention, but the Prince of Princes, the King of Kings, Jesus Christ, is going to break him. It's going to destroy him. And the vision of the evening and the morning he was told is true. Wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. Again, it's referencing the future. So here's the pictorial, again, summary of what I just went through. I included chapter 2 here because it correlates to chapter 7 and 8. We went over this, the winged lion, the bear, the leopard, the monster, the terrible monster with the 10 horns, and it correlates with the bear representing the ram, the Medo-Persian Empire, the he-goat representing the leopard, and so I think I'm gonna stop. Okay, here's another view of this, the 70 weeks. You know what? This is take some time to explain this.